Today is Sunday the 1st of March 2015. It's about 9:30 AM New Zealand Daylight Saving Time. In this video we're going to take another look at looking for Nibiru or Planet X or a second sun next to the sun using a basic video camera and a welding lens. We're going to look at some little tests that we can do to try and check and confirm what we're seeing. And I've set up two cameras this time so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. I've got a camera that's looking over my shoulder, and of course I've got this camera in front. Now you might notice that I've got this tape measure also attached to the camera. That is so that I can show you how far in front of the camera my finger is when I do the finger test, which is quite important. So we'll be looking at that later on. So first of all, this is a Canon Legria FS200. It's a standard definition video camera, and I'm going to slip in a welding lens. This is a number 12 welding lens. This is usually about the darkest grade that you can buy. You can usually buy these for about $2 or $3 from your local hardware store or engineering supplies store. So I've got a bracket that I've made up so I can easily slip this welding lens in front of the camera. Now, of course, you should never look directly at the sun without any sort of protection. And if you try and film the sun with your camera without any sort of filter, you are likely to damage the optic chip in the camera. So just be aware of that. Obviously you don't want to damage a very expensive camera. So I've got the welding lens in place, and as I bring the camera up, you can see the silhouettes of the trees, and the sun is just out of view there. There we go. So now I've got this set on on autofocus, and I'm going to take it off autofocus. I'm going to set it to manual focus. Now this is quite important because when the camera is on autofocus, it's looking for something that has some detail in it for it to focus on, and sometimes when we're filming distant objects or scenes that don't have a lot of clear detail, the camera will find it quite difficult to focus on what we're looking at. And in some cases, if you're using a filter, as in the case of Tim's video, then sometimes the camera will actually focus on the filter itself instead of on the sun that you're trying to look at. So what I'm going to do is change the focus from auto to manual. It's on manual, and now I'm going to set it to infinity. Now you see up the top of the screen there it says MF for manual focus. As I push the dial across, now we have the infinity symbol at the top there. Looks like a number 8 on its side. So that's telling me that the camera is focusing in the distance as far away as possible. So now I'm going to bring the camera up. We'll have a closer look at the sun. And as you can see, there seems to be some spots there, but as I move the camera, they're clearly lens flares because they're moving all around. I can't actually replicate the second sun effect with this camera. I know it's quite commonly happens on iPhone cameras and similar, which is actually an internal lens reflection. Okay, so I'm going to zoom up on the sun. I'll just lock that and center it first and zoom up on the sun, and the auto exposure on the camera is adjusting. So we're going to adjust that as well. So now that we've got the sun looking pretty good, I'm actually going to change the setting so that I can set the auto exposure. So there we go, this exposure, it's on auto now, A for auto. Now I'm going to push the button and lock it. It's now on manual. Okay, so that means that when I zoom out, the sun isn't going to change as the camera changes its auto exposure. So we get that nice, stable and clear looking image of the sun. So again, as I move the camera around, just like in the last video, we can see that there's nothing next to it, up, down, left, right. We don't see any other objects. All we see is the sun. I'll zoom that out further so that we've got more of a margin, and again there's nothing there. But notice how tiny the sun is without all the glare. I'll take it off manual exposure again so that the camera will adjust itself, and you'll notice how much bigger the sun looks with all of the glare. Now the glare is the sunlight being refracted through the atmosphere, the light being scattered through the atmosphere as it comes in. So let's put it on auto and see how that changes. Okay, notice how much bigger the sun looks now. Okay, now as you'll be able to see from the camera looking over my shoulder, I'm holding the end of the tape measure, which is 30 centimetres out, or approximately 12 inches, 1 foot, out in front of the camera. So that gives you an idea just how far out my finger is in front of the camera, and as I obscure the sun, we can see that there's nothing next to it. Now, the other thing that we would want to do is, if we could see something that appeared to be another object, and let me see if I can bring up a lens flare, okay, that we can use. Okay, so we'll try and use one of these ones that is out to the bottom right there. The other part of the test is to put our finger over where the second object appears to be. So you can see I'm carefully positioning my finger where the lens flares are, and we can see that those objects appear to be superimposed over my finger. Okay, so obviously they're not real objects because they shouldn't be superimposed over my finger if they are, and again, if I block out the sun's disk, they disappear. Okay, so certainly in my videos, as I say, it's the 1st of March 2015 here in New Zealand, 9:30 in the morning, and looking at the sun with and without the exposure adjusted, I certainly can't see any objects next to the sun. Again, that one down on the bottom right hand side there is just a lens flare. There's my hand and finger over that lens flare, and again we can see it superimposed over my hand, and if I put my finger over the sun, then it disappears completely. So that's the proper way to do the finger test. You can see the tape measure here is out in front. Of course, you don't need to use a tape measure. I'm just using that as a guide so that you know that my finger is well out in front of the camera. It's not up close. I believe in some of the videos that I've seen, the finger test has actually been done between the camera and the lens that's being used, whether it's a welding lens or a smoked piece of plastic. Now, of course, I'm not sure about that because I can't see an over-shoulder view of how it's been done like I'm doing in this video. But certainly the way to do it would be to hold your finger well out in front of the camera, approximately 1 foot away, 30 centimetres, and do the finger test. Remember to do both parts of the finger test: obscure the sun's disk and put your finger where the second sun object appears to be, to see if it's superimposed over your finger as we see here. Okay, so that's it, and no second sun, no Nibiru, no Planet X today, I'm afraid. As always, do check out my Facebook discussion page, Voices of Reason to Explain X or VORTEX. You'll find a link in the description area. Thank you for watching. Hello, this is Dazza the cameraman. Today is Sunday the 1st of March 2015. It's about 9:30 AM New Zealand Daylight Saving Time. In this video we're going to take another look at looking for Nibiru or Planet X or a second sun next to the sun using a basic video camera and a welding lens. We're going to look at some little tests that we can do to try and check and confirm what we're seeing. And I've set up 2 cameras this time so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. I've got a camera that's looking over my shoulder, and of course I've got this camera in front. Now you might notice that I've got this tape measure also attached to the camera. That is so that I can show you how far in front of the camera my finger is when I do the finger test, which is quite important. So we'll be looking at that later on. So first of all, this is a Canon Legria FS200. It's a standard definition video camera, and I'm going to slip in a welding lens. This is a number 12 welding lens.